Again, I read this story when it went up about 30 minutes ago by Paul Joseph Watson, and it made me disgusted. And it reminded me of what I'd already read about the Trilateral Commission plan. And you wonder why they're flooding Europe, Western and Eastern, with illegal aliens from Africa and from the Middle East at record levels. The plan is to make them a new voting bloc that will trump any individual EU country ever getting out, and then have them basically call for merging with Africa and the Middle East. Oh, that's a great idea. And so now the EU security head has called political Islam the future of Europe. Sharia law for the West. As the threat from ISIS extremists grows, the European Union's head of foreign affairs and security policy, Frederica Mogherini, I believe you pronounce it right, has caused consternation by asserting that political Islam is a firm part of Europe's future. Responding to last month's brutal Islamist terror attack in Tunisia, Kuwait, and France, she dismissed the idea of a clash of civilizations and shot back at critics of mass immigration. Islam belongs in Europe. It holds a place in Europe's history. I guess invading a few times and taking over areas, I guess that's true. And killing Christians en masse. I mean, I'm not attacking Islam per se, but I mean, give me a break. I mean, Europe can't even be for Europeans now, I guess, or Christians. Because there's this socialist and globalist hatred of Christians, folks, period. Islam belongs in Europe. It holds a place in Europe's history, in our culture, in our food, and what matters most in Europe's present and future. Before adding, I'm not afraid to say that political Islam should be part of the picture. Religion plays a role in politics. Yeah, ban all Christian stuff. Again, get rid of Christian culture, bring in another. Not always good, not always bad. Religion can be part of the process. What makes the difference is whether the process is democratic or not. Really? Well, what if 51% of Muslims vote to put bags over women's heads or sexually mutilate them? Does my daughter have to go get her genitals cut off or wear a bag over her head? You're going to have to come through my guns first. I'm sick of being overwrote. I'm sick of being told to stand down by all you fascist bootlickers allied with any criminal organization you can, telling me you're the liberal. You're a bunch of scum. What you are, mentally ill Jacobins from the French Revolution who wanted to invert reality, have 10-day work weeks, abolish the family. You're a bunch of crazy people. I'm going to do the Christie piece and then your calls, I promise. Let's play Chris Christie. Let's go ahead and roll this disgusting maggot. When our government is rogue, our government's funding the terrorists, our government is clearly out of control and illegitimate, and then now Rand Paul trying to stop it. He tried to stop funding Al-Qaeda and ISIS and exposing Benghazi. He's now the enemy, and when there's a terror attack, it's his fault. That's how stupid he thinks you are. And you know what I'm afraid? Not this audience, but the general public. I think he knows what he's talking about. What a slug. He thinks he'll get brownie points doing stuff like this. Let's go ahead and go to the clip.
In town hall meetings, people are really worried about ISIS. They're really worried about the threat of terrorism. And that's why what Rand Paul has done to make this country weaker and more vulnerable is a terrible thing. And for him to raise money off of it is disgraceful. It's disgraceful. And as the only guy who's used the Patriot Act in this race as a former prosecutor, you know, what he's done is we're going to look back on this. Listen this morning. We're going to look back on this, and he should be in front of hearings in front of Congress if there's another attack, not the director of the FBI or the director of the CIA.
So it's not Rand Paul trying to stop ISIS. No, he's behind it now here in Upside Down World. Now, let's reverse Upside Down World and come back to the real world with a 1-minute vignette that we air on local radio stations across the country that Rob Dew put together. Here it is.
Presidential candidate Chris Christie wants Americans to blame Rand Paul for terror attacks that haven't even happened yet. Here is what he told Morning Joe viewers.
What Rand Paul has done to make the country weaker and more vulnerable is a terrible thing. As the only guy who used the Patriot Act in this race as a former prosecutor, we're going to look back on this, and he should be in front of hearings and in front of Congress if there's another attack, not the director of the FBI or the director of the CIA.
That's right, Governor Christie. We shouldn't look at the FBI FBI, even though almost every terror attack on this country has happened with the help of an FBI informant? Or what about the statements made by Agent Thomas Fuentes, who said we have to keep the fear alive in order to justify budget increases? And then back in 2009, former Homeland Security Secretary Tom Ridge claimed that he was pressured by members of George Bush's cabinet to raise the national terror alert level just before the 2004 presidential election. No, we shouldn't look at those guys. That's right, Christy, you really have your priorities straight. Rob Dew reporting for Infowars.com and Infowars Nightly News.
By the way, Drudge had a Hill article out yesterday that the majority of the money being given by Republicans and Democratic leadership is to try to knock Rand Paul out of the race. They're not worried about Trump, they're not worried about Bush. They're worried about Paul because they know he's for real, folks. They know Governor Abbott's for real. They know the Attorney General down here is for real. They just indicted the Texas Attorney General, or the indictment is pending in the grand jury. For securities fraud, he faces life in prison over not filing a $1,000 filing fee he forgot to do. Maybe I heard he even had a crooked fingernail once. Okay, we're going to your phone calls. Let's talk to Corey in Washington. Thanks for holding. You're a trooper. Welcome, sir.
Hey, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
About 4 months ago, you had a guy on named Richie Allen out of the UK, and you were discussing how people are waking up, but there's no one really to lead or guide them. And I had a recommendation, piggybacking on Dave, your last caller, of more excellent guests in the Paul Craig Roberts, Joel Skousen mold. And there's 4 of them. I think you've had Dr. Alan Keyes on before. It's always good to hear from him. If you could get him back on again, that would be awesome. I don't know if you're aware of Chris Ann Hall. She's a constitutional attorney studying brush fires of liberty all over the land, trying to restore the public, get patriots to tear down the walls of indoctrination. If you could get her on, she is fantastic. And then 2 that would be relevant to this week that are always harping on the fake money and the fake currencies would be Ann Barnhart and Ernest Huber. Ann she's out of Denver, Colorado, and she shut her brokerage house down after the MF Global thing because she knew at that point, when the Honorable John Corzine stole all those people's money, that she could no longer do it. She knew it was rigged. She knew it was a game, and she got out. She basically...
We'll take those into consideration. Thank you. I'm aware of some of those folks and their work. Specifically, though, what do you think about the Greek economy? Is this the beginning of the big one, or what do you think is about to happen?
Who knows? It could, smoke and mirrors. It's all a game. It's all to get everybody excited. You never know, what kind of shadow puppets they're putting up. But who knows? It's fun to think about and go into scenarios, but it's just like what it is. I mean, people are waking up because, maybe 5 years ago they said, oh, okay, they would have, just voted. They wouldn't have voted no. They just would have said, oh, okay, just do what you've been doing.
Well, the Greeks have already had to have massive tax increases to pay off a lot of debt that's not theirs. Some of the debt is theirs, and so they know that they raise taxes again, it'll only stall their economy more. But now the globalists are going to cut off their food, their medicine, you name it. And I just wonder if the world's going to stand by and let the private banks, this world government that's growing, engage in human rights violations against Greece.
Well, that's up to, we the people in other people's countries. Are they going to sit around and be slaves, or they can get up and fight?
Well, I think folks should book trips to Greece to support them. And I'm strongly considering going to Spain, Italy, and Greece, the main epicenters of what we're about to see unfold. And I believe there's a very good chance it's going to be this winter or early next year. It may even be this fall, but I think we're going to see a new global spectacular meltdown, and out of that, a call for a global body headed up by the IMF, World Bank, and International Bank of Settlements to stabilize global currencies. And now, whether a country likes it or not, they've got to go under the control of this institution to fix a global crisis with a global body. And now there's an article that U.S. preparing coup to prevent Greece from falling under Russian influence. Oh, yes, the Russians are to blame for everything. No, the mega banks are the ones that have conquered this country. Thank you so much for the call. The United States and Germany are preparing to engineer a coup in Greece to keep the country operating as a strategic asset of NATO's vulnerable southeast European flank. A putsch in Athens to save the allied Greece from the enemy Russia is in preparation by the U.S. and Germany with backing from non-taxpayers of Greece. The Greek oligarchs, Anglo-Greek ship owners, and the Greek church, writes John Helmer, the longest continually serving foreign correspondent in Russia, not connected to the corporate media. The primary tip-off, something is brewing, can be detected by the presence of Victoria Nuland, Assistant Secretary of State for European and Eurasian Affairs in Athens in March. Noodle and The Guardian reported on March 17th, flew into the capital amid mounting U.S. concerns that the great euro debt crisis had begun to pose a geopolitical threat. Allowed to veer out of control, Greece could end up in the Abbott of Russia, financially bereft and without EU links to keep it bound to the West. NATO's southeastern flank would be immeasurably weakened at a time of mounting global security woes over Islamic fundamentalists in the Middle East, The Guardian reports. Oh, the radical army, the jihadis, there'll be a new invasion of Europe by the Muslims if we don't give in to global government. It's the globalists running the clash of civilizations, bringing in not the scientists, not the technicians, not the patriots of the Middle East. There are a lot of good folks over there, but the scum of the earth, who then promptly sign up for welfare and put on gangster outfits and merge jihadi culture with gangster gangbanger hip-hop culture. A horrid mutation. In the midst of Europe bitching and complaining that their welfare checks aren't big enough. I mean, what a disaster. But the socialists, controlled by the globalists, instinctively hate wealth, hate independence, so they want to wreck it and pull it all down so they can squat on top of it. And then have armored security all around them to protect them from the public when they themselves are the ones that destabilized the entire world. Daryl in California, thanks for holding.
You there, Alex?
Yes, I am, brother. Good to hear from you.
Okay. Oh, it's so good to hear from you. My wife and I were in Germany just a few weeks ago during Bilderberg, and we traveled through northern Germany, or just the lower two-thirds of Germany, and from Frankfurt down. And the news there, you know, their news bubble is a little different from ours. They have their own propaganda that they push on their people. But in traveling through there and then visiting with her family and, you know, turning them on to the Second Amendment, which they were afraid of until I left, and discussing with them that how about the gold, that Germany wants their gold back. And he said, her uncle says flat out, they want their gold back, and they need to get their gold back.
But
and
gold is racist, so they can't have it.
We would support them as best we could on the lower levels. But the people of that country, I think, are going to be very resilient. Now, I didn't go to Greece, but I think the people of Greece, you know, we're looking at ancient cultures, a culture that America, you know, we're only go back a few hundred years. I was staying in buildings, you know, in hotels that were 300, 400 years old, and going to these different things and visiting these people. The barns on those farms there are you know, they have a 16,000 square foot footprint, and they're 3 stories tall. And the countryside, you fly over the country, it's totally green. It's all farms, and they even farm their trees. They have sections that are forests that they cut down and replant, and they farm trees. And they do something else now. They're photon farmers, I call them. They have all of those giant barns have thousands of solar panels on them. If something breaks down in Europe, if it comes apart in Europe, and these people don't like the euro, these communities will fall together in small little cells.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because Europe is much more self-sufficient, Greece and other areas, but Germany as well, than the United States. We used to be very self-sufficient. They never basically gave up their agrarian lifestyle. Even though they live in the city, a lot of folks go out and have a farm in the country. Even if you're not wealthy, that's just part of the culture. Even, you know, lower middle class Dutch people will have a little farm or a little cottage out at the lake. And there's a culture of liking to do this. And so you're absolutely right. People can pull out of the euro. How can you have such industrious, hardworking people and then be told they're all in debt? Because we've been maneuvered to this point. God bless you. Good to hear from you. Great points. When I was talking about gold being racist, I'm not joking. Africa has more minerals than any other continent in the world. Per square mile, it's joke level how they've got basically every trace element, every precious metal, resources out the wazoo. But whenever African countries try to ship out any of their own goods, they're called blood diamonds or they're called conflict minerals. What that means is Western combines don't let them sell their goods unless they go through them, and then they warehouse the goods to artificially drive up the price and won't let African countries or individuals have any profit from that. If you do buy a diamond, you should basically, from my research, buy one they call a blood diamond. That means it actually might have come from somebody good or bad, you don't know. It didn't come through the Oppenheimers, De Beers, and that monopoly. But see, all the trendies and the Hollywood movies and the ads, don't buy a conflict diamond. Go to the store and buy a $20,000 ring for your wife, you know, that actually cost them $10. You know, don't actually, see how it's all inverted? And that's how they use a cause celeb or political correctness. It's like the World Wildlife Fund with Prince Bernhard that founded it, got caught running secret operations, poaching to make money. Of course, it's like whatever they say they do, they're the opposite. You understand?
Your liver can be full of fatty deposits, built-up toxins, and even dangerous objects known as liver stones. We worked with the top developers in the field of detox to take tried and true herbs and other compounds known to safely cleanse the liver and fuse it with the latest research and technological development on concentrating these ingredients to give you the maximum effect. Liver Shield is the only liver support product on the market that uses a patented Spigirex blend of powerful organic herbs that support detoxification. And when you visit InfoWarsLife.com, see the instructional video on how to do a 6-day liver detox. This isn't a game, and let me tell you, the results are dramatic. Liver Shield is totally organic and made of the safest high-quality herbs. But that said, you need to consult your physician before you do the full detox. Liver Shield can also be used daily by itself for overall upkeep of the liver. Secure your Liver Shield today exclusively at InfoWarsLife.com for the lowest price available. That's InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.